Emily loved her new apartment. Sunlight streamed through the large windows. The ornate moldings on the high ceilings spoke of a bygone era. It was a small haven in the bustling heart of Paris. She felt safe, cocooned in the quiet charm of number 3B. The building itself was a classic Haussmann, with wrought iron balconies and a grand facade. It was located on a quiet street tucked away from the main thoroughfare. The other residents, mostly elderly couples and solitary artists, were friendly but kept to themselves. This suited Emily perfectly. She enjoyed the peace and quiet of her new home. She had moved in just a week ago, her belongings fitting comfortably into the small space. The apartment was sparsely furnished, but she planned to change that soon. She had already bought a plush rug for the living room and a vintage lamp to grace the writing desk. Yes, number 3B was quickly becoming her sanctuary, a place she could truly call home. Emily decided to visit her sister in the countryside. It was a short trip, just a weekend getaway. She packed a small bag, leaving most of her things in the apartment. There was no need to overpack for a short stay. As she left, she took one last glance at her apartment door, number 3B. The train journey was uneventful. Emily spent most of it reading a book, her mind occasionally drifting back to her quiet apartment in Paris. She imagined herself curled up on the sofa, a cup of hot chocolate in hand, as the rain lashed against the windows. It was a comforting thought. The weekend flew by in a flurry of home-cooked meals, board games and laughter. Emily enjoyed her sister's company. They had always been close. Still, as much as she loved her sister, part of her longed for the quiet solitude of her apartment. By Sunday evening, she was eager to return to Paris and the comfort of number 3B. Emily stood in front of her apartment door. It was Monday afternoon. She had been back in Paris for an hour, her heart filled with anticipation. She reached for her keys, but something was wrong. The door was locked. She tried the handle again, but it wouldn't budge. Confusion clouded her features. Had she forgotten to lock it? Panic began to rise in her chest. She knocked, first gently, then with increasing force. There was no answer. The silence from the other side was unnerving. Where were her neighbors? Surely someone must have seen something. She leaned against the door, her ear pressed against the cold wood, but there was no sound from within. She took a step back, her mind racing. Had she gotten the wrong apartment? No, that couldn't be it. She distinctly remembered the number on the door, the chipped paint on the frame. This was definitely number 3B, but if this was her apartment, then why was it locked? And where were all her things? Emily decided to talk to her neighbors. An elderly couple lived across the hall. Surely they would know if something was amiss. She knocked on their door, her hand trembling slightly. An old woman, her face etched with wrinkles, answered the door. Emily, mustering her best French, inquired about her apartment. Apartment 3B? The old woman frowned, her brow furrowing. But no one has lived there for years. It's been empty. Emily's heart sank. That's impossible, she protested. I just moved in last week. I have the keys. She held them up as if to prove her point. The old woman peered at the keys, then shook her head. I've lived here for 40 years, young lady. Trust me, no one has lived in that apartment for as long as I can remember. She shut the door gently, leaving Emily standing alone in the hallway. Emily called the police. 2 officers, their faces etched with skepticism, arrived shortly. They listened to her story, their expressions unchanging. They questioned the neighbors, but their responses only deepened the mystery. No one remembered seeing Emily, let alone her moving in. They contacted the landlord, but the record showed no current tenant for apartment 3B. It had been vacant for years, marked as uninhabitable due to structural damage. The officers, visibly confused, suggested Emily seek help elsewhere. They left, shaking their heads and muttering under their breath. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She was alone, facing a mystery she couldn't comprehend. Her apartment, her sanctuary, had vanished. It was as if apartment 3B never existed. Emily spent the next few days in a daze. She stayed at a small hotel, her mind replaying the events of the past few days. She couldn't shake off the feeling that she had stumbled into something inexplicable. Paris, with its hidden courtyards and ancient buildings, suddenly felt like a city of secrets. She returned to the building several times, but nothing had changed. Apartment 3B remained an empty shell, its door sealed shut. The neighbors avoided her gaze, their whispers following her down the street. She could feel their eyes on her, judging, speculating. She tried to rationalize what had happened. Perhaps it was all a dream, a figment of her imagination. But the vivid memories, the tangible details of her apartment felt too real to be dismissed as a dream. Desperate for answers, Emily delved into the history of the building. She spent hours in libraries and archives, poring over old documents and maps. She learned that the building had been used as a military headquarters during World War II. A chilling thought struck her. Could Apartment 3B have been sealed off, its existence erased from official records? She discovered stories of secret units operating in occupied Paris, their missions shrouded in secrecy. Could Apartment 3B have been a safe house, its occupants disappearing without a trace? The thought sent shivers down her spine. She imagined secret agents, their faces hidden in the shadows, coming and going at odd hours. She pictured coded messages, clandestine meetings, and the ever-present threat of discovery. Was it possible that a part of that hidden world had somehow seeped into the present, swallowing her apartment whole? Emily returned to the building, drawn back by an invisible force. She stood before the sealed door of Apartment 3B, her hand hovering over the cold surface. She could hear faint sounds coming from within, the muffled murmur of voices, the clatter of dishes. It was as if life was going on inside, oblivious to her presence. She closed her eyes, her senses on high alert. She could almost smell the familiar scent of lavender and old books that permeated her apartment. Was she going mad? Or were these the echoes of a life she had briefly lived, a life that had been stolen from her? She pictured herself in her apartment, surrounded by her belongings, the sunlight streaming through the windows. The image was so vivid, so real, that for a moment she forgot it was gone. Emily never found a logical explanation for the disappearance of Apartment 3B. It remained an enigma, a mystery that defied all logic and reason. Some dismissed it as an elaborate hoax, while others whispered of government conspiracies and supernatural occurrences. Emily knew in her heart that what she experienced was real. Apartment 3B, with its sun-drenched windows and quiet charm, had existed. It was a place she'd called home, however briefly. Over time, the memory of Apartment 3B faded, becoming a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. It was a stark reminder that some doors are not meant to be opened, and some secrets are best left undisturbed. As for Apartment 3B, it would forever remain an anomaly, a whisper in the corridors of time.